ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ನೋಡಪ್ಪ ಸ್ಟೇಬಲ್ಲೇ ಆಗೋಯ್ತು.
Nienka upite senen enem henene. Hemet khani kharredet. Iwa.
$13,000 ಕಾಲ್ ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಮಾಡೋದಾ ಮಿಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪು? ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಆಗೋಯ್ತು. ಮಿಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪು ಗೊತ್ತು. ಮಗ ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ಮಿಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ಹೋಗಪ್ಪ 120 ಹೋಯ್ತು. ಪ್ರೀಮಿಯಮು ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. 306 ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇದೆ, ಆದರೆ ನಿಫ್ಟಿ 122.
Welcome to The Importance of Mummies. The first hieroglyph for embalmer appeared in pyramid texts of the Old Kingdom. It is likely that embalming was a trade that progressed alongside the evolution of ancient Egyptian funeral practices. While we still know nothing of how embalming came to be a profession, we do know that embalmers had a hierarchy, and that each embalmer specialized in a specific phase of the mummification process. The mummification techniques were jealously guarded by embalmers from generation to generation. Despite their efforts, Herodotus and Diodorus discovered their methods in late antiquity, but historians were skeptical about the validity of the texts. It remained a mystery until two teams of modern medical legal scientists confirmed the process in 1994 and again in 2011. The Uabet, meaning the pure place, was where the embalmers mummified the bodies of the deceased. Until the end of the Middle Kingdom, it was located in tents at the edges of the city due to the smell of decomposition. In the New Kingdom, however, the Uabet was located within the city limits, though still in open-air spaces.
ಹಿಂಗೆ
In the same way that the practices and techniques of mummification evolved,
ನಮ್ದು
so possibly did consideration towards embalmers within ancient Egyptian society.
ಇವಾಗ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಬುಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರೆ
The pharaoh had access to the most elaborate of mummification rituals. The richer citizens of Egypt also enjoyed complex embalming options, though none of them allowed for the removal of the brain or viscera. After purifying the body, embalmers injected a liquid through the rectum, sealed it, and allowed the mixture to settle. They then plunged the body into natron for up to 40 days. Once the body was dried, the seal was removed, and the entrails flowed out with the injected liquid, leaving the skin and bones of the deceased to be wrapped in linen and returned to the family for burial. The least costly embalming option was for the embalmers to simply inject a product called surmaya and immerse the body in the natron for up to 40 days before handing it over to the family. For all those who could not afford any embalming process, desert burials offered a pauper's alternative to preserve the bodies of the dead.
ನೀನು ಇನ್ನೂ ಒಂದು ಥ್ರೆಡ್ ಎತ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾ?
Egyptian civilization has always appealed to Westerners, even before the Greek and Roman invasions. As early as the Middle Ages, mummies discovered by travelers were often sent back to Europe. Curio cabinets, dating from the 16th and 17th centuries, usually included pharaonic artifacts in their collections.
ಅದೇ ಕಣ ನಾನು ಇನ್ನೂ 550 ರಿಕವರಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ನಾನು ಯಾರೋ ಕಾಲ್ ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ ತಡಿ. ಹಲೋ
Hello, good morning, sir.
ಹಲೋ ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳಿ. ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಅದು ಡಿಸ್ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ 1 ವರ್ಷದ ಮೇಲೆ ಆಗೋಯ್ತು ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿಯೋದು. ಅದೇ ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನ ಎಷ್ಟು ನಾನು 1 ವರ್ಷದ ಮುಂಚೆನೆ ನಾನು ಅವಾಗ ಮನೆ ಖಾಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಬನ್ನಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅದು ಡಿವೈಸ್ ಎತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ ಅದು. ಬಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಬರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಯಾರು ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಮನೆಗೆ ನಾನು ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರೋ ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರು ಬಂದಿರ್ಬೇಕೇನೋ. ಈಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆಯೋ ಇಲ್ಲೋ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಮೈಸೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಈಗ. ಹಾಂ ಬಟ್ ಹಲೋ, ಏರ್ಟೆಲ್ ಅವ್ರು 1 ವರ್ಷ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ. ಮಾಡೆಮ್ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕಳಿಸಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ.
The Egyptomania phenomenon was heralded by Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian campaign, which lasted from 1798 to 1802. The following years were marked by a resurgence of interest from rich enthusiasts and scholars who exposed Egypt to the general populace. Many research societies focusing on Egyptology were founded during those years.
ಯಾವಾಗ ಯಾವ್ದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಹಾಕಿರಿದ್ದು ಏನಂತ? ಓ ಇನ್ನೇನಪ್ಪ?
ಸಿಗಾಕೊಳ್ಳಲ್ವೇನದು? ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ ನನ್ನ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ನಾನು ನೋಡಿಲ್ಲ. ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅದನ್ನೇ. ಏನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಅಂತನಾ? ಹ್ಞೂ ಹ್ಞೂ ಹೌದು.
By 1868, mass tourism began in Egypt under the aegis of the Cook Agency. The rich would indulge in leisure trips to Egypt and bring back mummies. Upon their return, they would organize evenings that consisted of unpacking mummies and removing strips of linen and amulets layer by layer. These were considered the shining cultural events of the season. The Egyptian collections of many a museum were founded as a consequence of this mass pillaging. Thanks to those dubious parties, the fantasy of a mummy coming back to life, seeking revenge on its defilers, was born. The mummy malediction myth has remained steady in popular culture ever since, particularly in written media and cinema.
Welcome to Amulets and Rituals. Ancient Egyptians believed the world was a chaotic place, filled with supernatural forces. They knew that art and words gave life and power to things. Carved with images from hieroglyphs or in the shapes of gods, amulets were highly personal objects that warded off dangers and disease while attracting success. Some amulets were temporary, intended to solve a specific problem, while others were meant to be worn forever into the afterlife.
Hello?
Priests would infuse amulets with magical energy during religious ceremonies, imbuing them with protective magic to safeguard against supernatural powers. The wealthiest of Egyptians could obtain a divinely ordained pendant in which was hidden a magic formula inscribed on a piece of papyrus. It would act as a unique spell tailored to the owner.
Το μοιράκιο της Χαλεπίας αισθανωμένης υπό...
Religion was so important to ancient Egyptians that it permeated every aspect of their daily lives. Since water was the source of life and had the symbolism of purifying the body and the soul, all daily routines began with ablutions. Personal prayers to the gods were sometimes written or spoken, with family prayers passed down through generations.
Έδας δε γαρ επατάχθη δεινός. Ιου, κακής τι πράξεις. Οργήν κατάσχομαι. Τιμωρήσιν χρήδια τα πεπραγμένα. Πληγήν το μοιράκιον κατέσχει το εστί. Ω, τι οργίζεις!
Ουγαρανάκα το όντιεν πληγήν το μοιράκιο, χείριστο, χρή τιμωρείς θελήν.
Ιδέως έχω απαντάνσιοδε.
Ελέγχου άνευ έραση μάρτυρας ημί. Ω το μοιράκιον, ω της Χαλεπίας αισθανωμένης υπό μου.
Οίκον δε κλαθμών και οδυρμών οικούστησαν πάνι, αρκετών εστιγάρ, το κτίνος χρυπάβιν.
Έδας δε γαρ επατάχθη δεινός. Ιου, κακής τι πράξεις. Οργήν κατάσχομαι. Ουδείς πιστεύσαστε τι αυτήν φαυλώτην.
Χεμότε,
Ουδείς
νεφερουερέ.
εώρα και τι αυτήν ανεσχυντέα.
Χαίρε.
Ω, της μήνυσε μου.
Χαίρον ειδώνσε.
Φεύγε, τι πάταξον τον παιδί. Σφάλμα δε γαρ μέγαν, κατάστασης οργίζειν με.
Παύσταστε χρυπάραυτα. Τα τέκνα ουδι πατάξιν εν το οίκο. Εντρόπια θεοί. Ω εξάλλου μη διεί. Έδας δε γαρ επατάχθη δεινός. Ιου, κακής τι πράξεις. Οργήν κατάσχομαι.
Αδίκημα δε γαρ ειν μέγιστον έπαιξε. Τι ούτι οργήν αισθάνημι, δυναμίνην την πατάξιν.
Απέτρωσον ο κουτσικούς σκλάβων.
Παύσταστε χρυπάραυτα. Τα τέκνα ουδι πατάξιν εν το οίκο. Εντρόπια θεοί. Ω εξάλλου μη διεί.
Ιδέως έχω απαντάνσιοδε.
There was a complete calendar of each of the religious days, both good and bad. illustrating the appropriate daily rituals. Along with wine, milk, and ointments, offerings to the gods consisted of small amulets to life-size statues and family shrines. During the Greco-Roman period, offerings to the gods consisted of mummified animals, cats for Bastet, dogs for Anubis, and birds for Thoth. Deemed messengers of the gods, oracles offered guidance and judgment for all Egyptians, regardless of status. Crucial advice was offered on everything from day-to-day farming management to a pharaoh's decision on whether to start a war. Oracles were often used to decide legal issues. If the accused refused the judgment of the god, another god could be consulted in hopes of a more favorable reply.
ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಇವೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವನು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಎತ್ಬಿಟ್ಟವನೆ. ನಂದು ಟೋಪೀಸ್ ಯಾವುದು ಹೋಯ್ತು ಮಿಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ ಹೇಳ್ದೆ 73 ಇದ್ದಾಗ. ಮಗ ಆದ್ರೂ ಮಿಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ ಸಕ್ಕತ್ತಾಗೋಯ್ತು ಮಗ, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಮಿಸ್ ಆಯಿತು ಮಿಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪ್. ಮಗ ಎಷ್ಟಿನಿಂದ ಹೇಳು 73 ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋಣ ಅಂತಿದ್ದೆ. ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಹೇಳಿ ಹೋಗಿರೋದು? ಹೌದು,
It was oracles that guided the Greek sailor Batos to the coast of Libya, where he founded a colony known as Cyrene. During Alexander the Great's campaign to conquer Persia, he consulted the oracle at the Temple of Amun within the oasis of Siwa, and was subsequently ordained a divine being.
ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆನೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರೋ, ಇನ್ನೇನೋ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಫೈರ್ ಬಾಲ್ ಮುಗ್ತಾನು ಹೋಗೋಯ್ತು. ಸೋತೆ. ಎಷ್ಟು 7,000 ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡವ ಎತ್ತಿದ್ದಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಗುಡ್ಡೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಗುಡ್ಡೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ.
Welcome to Temples and Rituals of Ancient Egypt. During rituals and festivals, the god was carried on a solar barge between the areas of a temple or the temples of different cities. Funerary carvings and paintings covering thousands of years, as well as the Book of the Dead, depict the same ship and oar design. Solar barges have been uncovered near or within several pharaohs' tombs. They were intended to carry the pharaoh into the afterlife. Ancient Egyptians believed that Ra, the sun god, traveled the skies in a boat known as the solar barge. The solar barge was believed to cross over to mythological lands. The god Ra believed mankind was conspiring against him. He ordered Sekhmet, the lion-headed war goddess, to kill all humans. To his chagrin, Ra quickly realized that with all humans gone, there would be no one left to worship him. In order to stop the rampaging Sekhmet, beer was brewed and dyed red with pomegranate juice to resemble blood. Sekhmet drank every drop of the brew she could find, eventually passing out drunk. When she awoke, she was calmer, and her lion visage had changed into Bastet. The Festival of Drunkenness was celebrated in honor of that myth. Unlike the daily rituals that took place in the temple and were performed by priests, festivals allowed the entire population of the city to participate. Festivals helped mark the passing of the seasons in the agricultural calendar. In reflecting the cycles of life, festivals offered a sense of consistency and structure for the regular citizens, thus reinforcing the sense of order that pharaohs were to provide for the citizens of Egypt as part of their godly duties. The importance of these festivals is demonstrated by their longevity. Records show that Osiris festivals occurred for more than 2,000 years. Some festivals serve to reinforce state control and promote the king's reign. Both the Opet and Set Jubilee festivals were specifically intended to celebrate the renewal of the king's power. The temple hierarchy consisted
ಹೇಳೋ ನನಗೆ ಯಾವ್ದು ಬಿಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಕಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇಗ ಹೇಳೋ. ನನ್ನ ಮಗ ಗುಡ್ಡೆ ಹಾಕ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಕ್ಯಾನನ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾನೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದು. ಇನ್ನೊಂದೇ ಟಮ್ಕೋ. ಕಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ದಿದೆ ಹೇಳೋ. ಯಾವ್ದದು ಡ್ರಿಲ್ಲರು? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೋ ಚಿಣ್ಕ ಮಿಣ್ಕ ಹಾಕಿದ ಗುರು ಅವನು. ಲೋ ಸುಮ್ಮನಿರೋ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಣ್ಕ ಮಿಣ್ಕ ಅದೇನೋ ಅದು. ಏನ್ ಮಗ ಟವರ್ ಹೊಡಿಯೋಕೆ ಬಿಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವನು. ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸೆಸ್ ಆರ್ಚರಿ ಎತ್ತು ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಬಿಡು. ಬಾ ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ಆಡವ. ಲವ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೇನೆ, ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಹಾಕೋ. ರಾಕೆಟ್ ಕೊಡು, ನಂಗೆ ರಾಕೆಟ್ ಬೇಕು. ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಏನೇನೋ ಇಲ್ದೇ ಇರೋದೆಲ್ಲ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ಯೋ.
Of high priests, several types of priests, scribes, and servants. The high priest was known as the prophet. Some divinities had up to 4 prophets, and they were the ones to perform the most advanced and complex rituals. Egyptian priests were not confined to solely religious tasks, and in fact had crucial roles in Egypt's administration, most of which served to reaffirm the pharaoh as the proper vessel for the gods. Their focus within the temple was centered on the proper conduct of daily divine rituals, rather than as custodians of dogma or the indoctrination of individuals. ಇದು ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ ಬಿಡು, ರೈಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು. Barbarians please.
ಎಷ್ಟೋಗುತ್ತೆ? ಬರ್ತಾ ಬರಕು ಹೌದು.
Scribes were custodians of the sacred sciences. Some priests were associated with the funeral rites and were considered the group with medical knowledge. The servants of the Ka were low-ranking priests who carried food and offerings in funerary rituals. Lector priests were distinguished by their ability to read, and their main duty was to recite specialized religious texts in both temple and funerary rituals.
ಇದಕ್ಕೇನಾದ್ರು ಬಿಡು. ಎಡಗಡೆ ಹೋಯ್ತಲ್ಲಿ
Abai, Juamen, Pahapi, Kaahemet, Epoi, Mesuni Sud, Inichem Ho, Hem Hotep Nefer, Wedet Hetiach, Pichenatem, Hem Hayim Baba, was Jaat Al Shemai, Iu I Henai Che, Here How.
ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಹಾಕು.
Abai, Juamen, Pahapi, Kaahemet, Epoi, Mesuni Sud, Inichem Ho, Hayabu, Nekdemoth, Senefe,
ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಬಿಡು.
Piaisa, UMYAN, Chesati, EB, Adu, Beshetie, Amon Nacht, Duau.
ನೋಡ್ದಾ ಕುಟ್ಟೇಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಹಾಕ್ತಾವನು.
Perhaps the Joseph Fruity, Khati, Hotel Najer, Shisao, Cheritua, Wajayat, Testamentu, Nechewarawet, Abesh, Amanacht, Uetian Bench.
ನಾವು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒಂದು ಸಬರ್ ಹೊಡಿಬೇಕು ನಾವು.
Perhaps the Joseph Fruity, Neseh, Khati, Hotel Najer, Shisao, Cheritua, Wajayat, Testamentu, Nechewarawet, Abesh, Amanacht, Uetian Bench, Daidayam Musichet, Hayoel, Hat Ha. Behes Pai, Chespia, East, Abai, Juamen, Pahapi,
ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಅದು
Hayabu,
ಹೋಯ್ತಲ್ಲಿ.
Nekdemoth, Senefe, Piaisa, UMYAN, Chesati, EB, Adu, Beshiti, Amon Nacht, Duau.
ಹೌದು ಅದು ಏನದು +2 ಅಂತ.
Priests and all the officials who served the temple worked only 3 months a year, with each period separated by a quarter of inactivity, at least within the temple compound. Each outgoing group handed over the temple and their tools to the newcomers. Only the high priesthood remained in permanent office within the temple.
Affe de Gantini. Senefer Emilio. Betem Ayubai.
Joseph Eni. Betem Sene.
وبوتيا قد أسلف شاورت وأجير هنا من نخت أفد خنقيني سنفعله وأتحرم بعيد شاورت وأجير هنا من نخت
حرج السرق مجعار
Sepawog ang sintek. Generet nemi usu khaynim. Haoli en khedni I.
خير تبو
سنعم بدلما
وقعت حروب
بوتيا قد أسلف أفد الخنقيني سنفعله بتم عيب بعيد
The most sacred part of the temple was referred to as Jeser Jeseru, the Holy of Holies. The most sacred inner sanctuary was where the shrine to the temple deity was located. Only priests were allowed within. Offerings were given and rituals unseen by even the pharaoh were performed. While the team chose to allow any character access to this space in some game temples, normally it was reserved for priests alone. Pharaohs and their priests often chose the site of these sacred temples because of some mythological connection or an alignment with the cardinal points and certain stars. Once selected, a foundation ritual was performed. The naos was where the god statue stood. The representation of the deity was usually in stone or wood and decorated with gold, silver, and precious stones. Smaller temples had only one naos, while larger complexes, such as the Temple of Karnak, had many chambers to honor gods, such as Amun, Ptah, and Osiris. Each statue was believed to be a receptacle for the presence or essence of the god's Ka, enabling it to take a physical form. Through the statue, the god came to the shrine to eat, drink, and communicate with the pharaoh, or with the priests standing in for the pharaoh.
جسرت أم نخت خف وعجو نخبت أحسعد
ಫುಲ್ ಏನೋ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಫಾಲ್ ಬಂತು. ಓ ಗುಡ್ಡೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಮಗಲು ಒಂದ್ಸರಿ ನೋಡಿ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡು.
Welcome to Temples and Priests. From its foundation, the city of Memphis favored worship of the god Ptah. The main temple of Ptah was known as Hutkaptah, meaning Palace of the Ka of Ptah. The name of the temple, translated into Greek as Aegyptos, would eventually evolve into the modern name Egypt. Temples were the center of religious, political, and economic life in ancient Egypt. These sacred places were viewed as the literal home of the gods and goddesses. As such, every aspect of them required care and reverence, all of which was accomplished through elaborate ritual.
ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಬಟ್ ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ನನಗೆ 25,000 ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಸಸ್ಟೈನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ನಿಮ್ಗೇನು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ? ನಿಫ್ಟಿ 25 ಕೆಳಗೆ ಹೋಗಿತ್ತು, ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಿತ್ತು. ಕನ್ಫರ್ಮ್ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತಾ
Nie.
Sonnet.
Hotep Neferueret.
Yo, puto.
Located in the center of Memphis, the Temple of Ptah was the most prominent and imposing building in the city. The long walkway leading toward the temple, known as the Dromos, was guarded by rows of sphinxes. The entire sacred area was designed to keep the statue of the god protected, deep within the sacred enclosures that surrounded it. The Dromos opened into a courtyard, with a surrounding portico graced with columns carved to resemble palm trees. During special festivals, the general population was allowed to enter this location, but under no circumstances would they be allowed into the sacred spaces beyond the courtyard. The Memphis Alabaster Sphinx was discovered in 1912, almost completely buried in water and sand. 8 meters in height and weighing in at roughly 90 tons, erosion has destroyed the original engravings, making it difficult to determine when it was created. Egyptologists believe that its facial likeness resembles Amenhotep II, and so it could have been sculpted somewhere between 1700 and 1400 BCE. It is believed that this monument once stood outside of the Temple of Ptah and was integrated into subsequent extensions to the complex. The size of the imposing sculpture reflects the importance it had to the temple during the New Kingdom. This Sphinx is one of the few remaining artifacts from the ruins of Memphis to survive. In Egyptian culture, some animals were associated with gods, while others were considered to be living gods. The Apis bull was believed to be a divine entity. The earliest mention of the Apis bull in ancient Egypt goes back as far as the first Egyptian dynasty. Originally the symbol of fertility, the Apis bull was linked to the god Ra, with the image of the sun carried between its horns. Later it was associated with Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, thus becoming the funerary divinity Osorapis. The Apis bull lived with its harem in a sacred barn located in an enclosure in the Temple of Ptah. Each bull bore 29 signs representative of its divinity. Among them, the bull had an eagle-shaped mark on its back, a double tail hair, and a scarab-shaped mark under the tongue. The signs were intended to correspond with the lunar cycle. After its death, Egyptians would search for its reincarnated form among the livestock. Like other living divinities, the mortal incarnation of the Apis bull was prayed to, and when it died, it was given a luxurious funeral, which included mummification. Until the reign of Ramses II, the Apis bulls were buried in individual graves in Saqqara. During the 26th dynasty, the bodies of the bulls were buried. Ancient Egyptians believed that temple rituals were essential to maintain order in the cosmos and allow communication between humans and gods. The pharaoh was required to bring offerings as part of a twofold promise made to the gods, to remain a just ruler and to prevent chaos from entering Egypt. Details of the ceremonies found on temple walls provide a thorough overview. The high priest would first awaken the sleeping god with a chant. The god was then washed with incense-infused water and its mouth rinsed with mineral salts. Heredity was the primary source of new recruits. Rarely was an outsider allowed this position. High priest candidates made their way up the ranks of the temple hierarchy. In the 21st dynasty, Thebes became the capital of an almost entirely theocratic government. The city was headed by king. The educational institution in ancient Egypt was known as the House of Life. Attended by the offspring of the elite and the clergy, it was a place tailored to the social status of its attendees. Only 2 known centers have been uncovered, one in the abandoned city of Akhetaten and one at the temple of Ramses II on the west bank of Thebes. The House of
ಡೆಸ್ಕ್ಟಾಪ್ ನಾನು ಹೇಳೋದು, ಬಟ್ ನೀನು ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲಿಂಗು ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ಗೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಲ್ಯಾಪ್ಟಾಪ್. ಹೌದು, ಬಿಗ್ ಬಿಲಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಡೇ ಯಾವತ್ತು? ಓ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇರ್ತೀಯಾ? ಇನ್ನೇನು ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ನೀನು.
life offered training for the elite, destined for occupations such as astronomers, doctors, veterinarians, diplomats, architects. Not limited to instruction for young students, the House of Life was a source of reference for many scholars, with rooms dedicated to papyri of many disciplines. Because papyri were preserved there, the Greco-Romans referred to the House of Life as a Ancient Egyptian economy was based on an unequal system of redistribution of goods. The state of Egypt collected the crops, and the temples distributed them throughout the provinces. Since the only people capable of counting and ensuring a fair redistribution were the educated, there are records of pharaohs making offerings of large tracts of land and animals to palaces, warehouses, and granaries were built inside the temple compound to better control the redistribution of goods. The size of the recorded numbers of goods, combined with every other function filled by temples, only serves to confirm their might as economic, religious, and political centers of power within Egypt. Welcome to Building Ancient Egypt. Constructed with bricks made of mud, most ancient Egyptian buildings were not permanent. Only religious temples and funerary monuments were meant to stand the ravages of time. For these very important structures, Egyptians used limestone, sandstone, and harder materials, such as granite, quartzite, and travertine. These heavy stone blocks were so prized that they were often transported from quarries located hundreds of kilometers away. Limestone was common and easy to extract from quarries on the east bank of the Nile. This particular limestone had marine fossils in it, however, preventing it from being easily decorated and polished. Used as the main building material, the structure would then be finished with a finer limestone that was polished smooth and decorated as needed. Limestone was used for the building of the first pyramids and for most of the religious buildings of the Old and Middle Kingdoms. Ancient Egyptians preferred to use sedimentary rock beds or layers like sandstone and limestone because they were often easier to extract. The common method used to extract stone was the open pit quarry. Stonecutters would find quality stone, shape, and dig it out on site. Open pit quarries enabled many workers to work simultaneously on many blocks, which allowed for better productivity. Workers would draw a large grid directly on the stone's surface, taking care to leave a space between the blocks. This allowed them to isolate the different blocks and create a trench that would make the extraction easier. Stoneworkers used iron chisels for hard rock and bronze or copper tools for softer rocks such as limestone. Removing material between each block created a trench line. In some quarries, that
ಯಾರು ದುಬೈಗೆ ಹೋದ್ರಿ ಈಗ? ಇನ್ಯಾರು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ? ಲೋ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ಏನೋ ಹಿಂಗ್ ಫಾಲ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ನಿಫ್ಟಿನೂ ನೋಡೋ. ಲೋ ಲೋ ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ಔಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಒಂದು ತಗೊಳವಾ? ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ಬಾ, ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ತಡಿಯೋ. 51,100 PE. ಲೋ 206 ಇದೆ, ಆಗಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ. ಮಗ ಬೇಡ, ಹಂಗೆ ರಿವರ್ಸಲ್ ತಗೊಂತು ಬೇಡ. ಯಾವಾಗ ಹೋಗೋಣವೋ? ನಿಂದೇನು ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ ರೆಡಿ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಮತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬಾಬನ ಹತ್ರ ಇಸ್ಕೋತೀಯ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಫ್ರೈಡೆ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಬರಲಾ? ಇವನು ಹರೀಶ್ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಕೊಂಬರೋಣ ಒಂದ್ಸಲಿ. ಬಟ್ ಅವತ್ತು ಟ್ರೇಡ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಎನಿವೇ ಫ್ರೈಡೇಸ್ ನಾವು ಮಾಡಲ್ವಲ್ಲ.
trench was wide enough to accommodate a worker, who would then cut the block entirely on site. For harder rocks like granite, workers cut a series of holes and hammered wooden wedges into them. They then soaked the wood until it swelled and caused the rock to split. The gallery extraction technique was used when the desired rock was buried under layers of rubble. This method was often necessary. In order to find the whiter and finer limestone required for a smoother finish. To cut the stone, they created a longitudinal kerf, or slit, and then cut the rock at a 90-degree angle. The lower side was determined along the geological layers or by using a horizontal cut. Wooden wedges were inserted in the rock and hammered in. Shock waves were then generated using hammers, fracturing the blocks at the seam. To maintain the stability of these mining pits over the course of quarrying, workers would leave support sections of unexcavated rock. In every quarry, dedicated shrines were established to offer protection for the workers. In particular, Serket, the scorpion goddess, was considered a very powerful deity among quarry workers. Every mine and quarry of ancient Egypt included a scorpion charmer who was said to use magical powers to ward off the dangerous insects and keep the workers safe.
ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ
Welcome to Workers and Transport. Whether workers were employed for the pyramid construction or at the quarries, the government's skilled architects and engineers were employed year. Archaeological research shows that while some quarries were close to the Nile, others were low. Whenever possible, blocks were toppled from a higher elevation onto the sled. Workers. During flood season, the Nile was at its largest and deepest, which allowed the transportation of the heaviest and biggest loads. The Uwadi el-Jarf papyri detail a limestone load intended for the Khufu. Stone cargo generally weighed 15 tons per boat, amounting to roughly 6 or 7 blocks per trip. For heavier loads such as obelisks, monolithic pillars, or gigantic statues, river transportation was the most efficient way to ferry stone blocks between the quarry and the construction site. Blocks were transported by flotillas of several types of boats. The most detailed illustration of transport by river is a relief of Queen Hatshepsut's barge with an accompanying flotilla.
ಸುಮ್ಮನಿರಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಇದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಎತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ನನಗೇನು ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಮಗ ಯಾವುದೋ ಜನರಲ್ ಕೋಚು ಪಾತಾಲ್ಕೋಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಬೊಮ್ಮ ಫೇಕ್ ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಥರ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ಇಲ್ದಿರೋರ ಹತ್ರ ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ತಿರೋದ, ಯಾರ ಹತ್ರ ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ಕಟ್ಟಿ ಅಂತ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ದುಡ್ಡು ಅವಳೆ. ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾಮು.
Welcome to
ಕೊಟ್ಟವ್ರವಳನ್ನ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದೆಂಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಾಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವರು ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲರ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಇವತ್ತು
agriculture and seasons. While crops were cultivated in different oases around the desert, most of the arable lands were near the Nile. Two types of cereal grain were cultivated, barley and an ancient wheat known as emmer. These two key ingredients contributed in establishing bread and beer as the staple of the Egyptian diet and the basis of its economy. The Ptolemaic era created an agricultural revolution with the introduction of advanced agricultural techniques and new grain types, such as rice, durum wheat, and pearl millet. The resulting agricultural mass production greatly increased the economy of ancient Egypt. It also prompted the development of storage and transportation, allowing long-distance trade with other regions. Both bread and beer rations were part of a system of barter payment. The state used those goods to pay wages for those who worked in the quarries and at the construction sites. Beer was so important to ancient Egyptians, they had a goddess.
ನಾನೇನೇ ಕೇಳೋ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿರೋದು. ನಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತು ನೀನು ಕಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತಿದ್ಯಾ, ನೀನು ಬಿಲಿಯನೇರ್ ಆದರೆ ನನ್ನ ಲಕ್ಷಾಧಿಪತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯ ಅಂತ. ನೀನು ನಾನೇನೇ ಕೇಳಿ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿರೋದು, ನೀನು ಕೋಟ್ಯಾಧಿಪತಿ ಆದರೆ ನನ್ನ ಲಕ್ಷಾಧಿಪತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯ ಅಂತ. ಗೆದ್ದೆ ಬೂಟ ಗೆದ್ದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗುಡ್ಡೆ ಹಾಕಿದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎತ್ತೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟಲ್ಲ ನೀನು. ಏನಲ್ಲೋ ಪಾಪ ಅವನಷ್ಟಾಕ್ದ ನೀನು ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಿಯಲ್ಲೋ. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಯ್ತೋ ನೀನಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡು, 1.5 ಟವರ್ ಎತ್ತಿದ್ಯಾ. ಗೆದ್ದೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟ.
Of beer brewing, Tenenet. Tenenet is seen in many paintings and sculptures with beer, and women are depicted as the primary beer makers. In order to increase agricultural production, fertile land was divided into plots and large agricultural villages were encouraged. The state and temples were the biggest landowners. Depending on the region, fertile land was managed by civil servants or rented to individuals. Ancient Egyptians relied on rudimentary tools for land cultivation. Soil was broken down with hoes, and wing plows were used to make furrows.
ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ಏನು ಸಂಬಂಧ ಇಲ್ಲ.
The three seasons known as Akhet, Peret, and Shemu corresponded to a specific phase of the agricultural process and the river's natural changes. Akhet was the time of the flood, beginning with the appearance of the star Sirius in July. Peret was the time when lands were cultivated, plowed, and sown. This fell between October and November. Shemu ran from May to September and was when harvesting and taxation began.
ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತು ನೀನು ಚವತ್ತಿಂದ ನಾವು
The pharaoh's duty was to uphold order against chaos and provide for his people. Priests and local governors also wanted to appear as protectors of the people. However, any variation in the Nile's seasons could cause water shortages. This had devastating consequences on wheat and barley crops. The pharaoh, administrators, and priests knew they needed to demonstrate their ability to prevent such a catastrophe from happening. And so they invented the story, which would be inscribed upon the famine stela. The story begins with the pharaoh worried for his people. The Nile hasn't flooded in years, and his people are starving. In search of the origins of the flooding, Djoser seeks out Khnum, the protector god of the region and the source of the drought. Djoser gives the god offerings and orders his priests to restore the temple of Khnum. These offerings please the god, and the floods are restored. This story was intended to highlight the importance of the deity in everyone's daily lives, while also demonstrating the crucial role that the priests and the king played in feeding and protecting the people of Egypt.
ಕೋಳಿ ಆಗ್ತೈತೆ. ನಮ್ದು ಬರೀ ಲೆವೆಲ್ 13. ಯಾರು ಇವನು ಶಾಪ್ ಜೈಂಟು? ಈ ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನನಗೆ ಹೊಗೆ ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಯಾರು ಇವನು ಶಾಪ್ ಜೈಂಟು?
Kati Ha'ar. Kati Ha'ar tek. Kati Ha'ar. Kati Ha'ar tek. You wake what he said to tek. Hata'a. You wake what he said to tek. To wake ku em Ha'ar. You wake what he said to tek. Hata'a. You wake what he said protect to wake to MHA.
No, hindi siya pala ako talaga. ನಿಫ್ಟಿ ಡೌನ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Cultivation. The new grain types of the Ptolemaic period required a great deal of water. Farmers needed to ensure they had effective, consistent irrigation. The Nile's rising and receding waters naturally irrigated most of the crops. Areas where the Nile didn't reach, such as gardens and vegetable plots, required an irrigation tool known as the shadoof. The shadoof allowed easy transport of water from its source. It consisted of a tall wooden frame with a long pivoting pole and suspended bucket. The system could be raised and lowered with little effort.
ಯಾರೋ ದುಬೈಗೆ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದು? ಫ್ಲಿಪ್ಕಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದರೂ ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕ ಅದು ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ.
Later, a sakya, or water wheel, was invented. The sakya needed animals to turn the wheel, which rotated buckets through the water. It drew the water to an elevation of 3.5 meters and enabled a great deal of control over the irrigation process. This improvement supplied larger areas and thus resulted in larger harvests. The threshing process separated the grain from its husk. Workers would spread the ears on clean ground. Oxen, cows, or donkeys were then guided back and forth to trample the grain. This continuous movement worked the grain loose while preventing the animals from eating it. Unwanted chaff and straw were swept away, or gathered and added to the mud used to make bricks, to make them stronger. Winnowing was the stage where workers used wooden scoops to throw ears in the air. The wind carried off the chaff, leaving the heavier seeds to fall to the ground. This action was repeated until the undesired materials were sifted out. Grain waste was mixed with manure or other organic substances to produce brick-shaped dung loaves that could be easily burned. A standardized brick size enabled Egyptians to mass-produce this byproduct and use it as a commodity.
خمخوتك نفر ولد خديناخ في خينات هم حيم ربا وسنجاج آت آوشن إيو حناين شن هي الخوة
ಹೌದಾ ಬಟ್ ಲೈವ್ ಬರ್ತಾನವನು
Rechetu shemuatek. Rechetu shemuatek. Rechetu shemuatek. Rechetu shemuatek. Ta emkeku. Ta emakeku.
Transporting large amounts of grain required ships equipped to carry heavy loads. These goods were moved during the Nile's flooding season, when the river was deep enough for large ships. The transports stopped at checkpoints to accommodate customs and police controls, as well as for technical requirements and weather conditions. Having reached Alexandria's inner harbor, the wheat was unloaded under the supervision of a civil servant in charge of wheat management. Portions were distributed to Alexandria's city market, and the remaining stockpile was either exported or stored in warehouses. Grain storage facilities were located across all of Egypt. Temples and institutions had large silos, while individual houses had... When the sieves used by ancient Egyptians were unable to filter out sand and stones. Grit often passed into the flour, causing long-term tooth abrasions among all classes of Egyptians.
Yeah. Yimechiri.
Imhotep Nefertari.
Oui, Imhotep.
Welcome to Domesticated Animals of Ancient Egypt. Agriculture and domesticated livestock were introduced 6,000 years ago. Archaeologists have found traces of cattle, donkeys, pigs, and dogs. Pets were deeply cherished in ancient Egypt. Many illustrations of children often include a pet in the depiction. One of ancient Egypt's most iconic animals, the cat, wasn't adopted into their daily life until the Middle Kingdom. Since they were so highly capable of killing snakes and rodents, cats were present throughout every period. However, they only became pets sometime during the Middle Kingdom. Prince Thutmose, son of Amenhotep III,
Hanemes Nefer. Yehiesen. Yanumi. Hotep Nefer.
The earliest reference to dogs dates back to 5000 BCE. They were popular pets, as they helped hunters and protected herds. They were closely linked to Anubis, the jackal-headed god. Baboons, monkeys, and even falcons were tamed as pets. Each was mummified and buried with as much ceremony as any family member. Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Fashions. Learning what life was like for ancient Egyptians presents many differences, and yet also surprising similarities to how people might live today. Understanding the daily lives of regular citizens so many thousands of years ago is ultimately what connects us as human beings. Jewelry was a popular item among ancient Egyptians of all social standing. Both men and women wore earrings, rings, and bracelets. Status determined how much jewelry a person wore and what it was made of. Common folk wore pearl necklaces, simple bracelets, and leather bangles. Brightly colored earthenware and glass paste were a favorite enhancement. Jewelry was a popular item among ancient Egyptians of all social standing. Both men and women wore earrings, rings, and bracelets. Status determined how much jewelry a person. The jewelry of the elite was made from gold, silver, and other precious stones. Because gold never lost its shine, it was considered akin to the flesh of the gods. Wide jeweled collars were a favorite. Made with rows of beads formed into patterns of animals or flowers, the soft chiming sounds. Though idealized, tomb paintings are a catalog of the changing fashions of ancient Egypt from the Old to the New Kingdom. Egyptians took appearance and cleanliness very seriously and were diligent about their fashion, hair, and jewelry as well as their grooming. The fabric of ancient Egyptian clothing was almost entirely made. Cosmetics, including concoctions to prevent body odor and bad breath, were an integral part of everyday life for Egyptians. Used by both men and women, cosmetics were used as moisturizing ointments. Egyptians believed kohl had magical powers, wearing it as black eyeliner to protect their eyes from the sun and to prevent eye infections from particles in the flooded Nile River. Women and teenage girls wore their hair long and often braided. Wealthier women included carved combs or hairpins. The length of men's hair rarely dropped past the shoulders. They were mostly clean-shaven during the dynastic period, a trend began by the elite and soon adopted by the general populace. Queen Hatshepsut donned an artificial beard. Wigs were very popular, used for special occasions or to conceal gray hair or baldness. They were fastened in place with beeswax. The most expensive wigs were made from human hair and reserved for royalty. Other wigs were composed of linen, wool, or animal hair. Prepubescent children generally had their heads shaved. Young girls kept some strands intact, while young boys had a braid worn on the side.
ಮತ್ತೆ ನಿಂಗೆ ಯಾರು ಹೇಳಿ? ಗೇಮ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ ಕಾಸಿಲ್ಲ, 3600 ರೂಪಾಯಿ. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಯಾವ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ.
Welcome to Artisans of... It was under the watchful eye of Ptah of Memphis, the god of craft and architecture, that ancient Egyptians developed the unique rendition of the world they lived in. Ancient Egyptian craftspeople created both art and a wide variety of mundane, everyday tools. Art, in all its forms, has offered not only a practical insight into the way ancient Egyptians lived, but in how they viewed the world and their place in it. The balance of order and chaos was crucial in both the physical and the metaphysical universe. In ancient Egyptian culture, drawing was used as illustration, such as seen in the Book of the Dead. It was also the first step in the creation of a relief, painting, or statue. Two-dimensional representations were concerned with order and form, and were intended to honor gods and promote the transition of the soul to the afterlife. Stylistically, Egyptians were concerned with the depiction of the human form's inner self. An exception to this were scenes depicting hunting and battle, where the reliefs could be either in high... For relief, statues were believed to be vessels for the souls of the deceased. In ancient Egypt, at the domestic level, most Egyptians were craftspeople to a greater or lesser extent. An ancient located near the Valley of the Kings, Deir el-Medina was... Archaeologists believe the site was home to skilled and respected artisans for over 400 years. It is considered one of the most important discoveries relating to Egyptian daily life. While much of the focus of Egyptian archaeology was on its kings and queens, it wasn't until the excavation of Deir el-Medina that Egyptologists were given a valuable window into the community life of ancient Egyptian artisans.
Welcome to Evolution of Pottery. Excavations all over Egypt have uncovered enormous quantities of pottery vessels of all shapes. Pottery was essential to ancient Egyptians' daily lives. It was used in all aspects of life, from the storage of grains and liquids to containers within the tombs of necropolises. The most common pottery was made from Nile silt that resulted in a reddish-brown clay. Early pots were made. The potter's wheel was utilized during the Old quartzite particle. Potsherds could be found anywhere and were the most common canvas for writing or drawing, in comparison to the more expensive papyrus sheets. Named after their Greek description, ostraca contained daily life records, letters, or could be drawn upon. Artists drew sketches for temples and tombs, or simply for leisure.
هي
Welcome to the Egyptian household. In pre-Greco-Roman culture, women were considered equal to men in many matters. They owned property, testified in court, could divorce and inherit. Until the Greeks and Romans restricted their rights, Egyptian women could take over their deceased husband's trade. Marriage contracts included mentions of allowances and items of value brought to the marriage by the woman, which would forever belong to her.
هي
Certain professions were open only to women, such as weaving or professional mourning, while others were available to both genders, including working as servants for the rich households. Social status did have an impact, though. The higher in status, the easier it was to obtain education. Homes were generally composed of 3 rooms. First, there was the entrance, furnished with a small bench of brick, probably intended for a statue and protective divinity. Then there was the ceremonial room, meant to receive guests. The last room was either a bedroom or kitchen. Furniture consisted of basic chairs, chests, and storage. Tables were not. Marriages were a social contract rather than a religious construct. Family was vitally important to ancient Egyptians, and children were considered a blessing from the gods. The father, mother, and their children were the nucleus of the family. Status and wealth played a large role in the style and size of ancient Egyptian homes. Commoners, town officials, and the rich lived in mansions with numerous rooms that were luxuriously decorated. Only temples and tombs meant to last for all eternity were built with stone. Funeral stone inscriptions focused on the main member of a household. Encircling this person would then be a spouse, parents, and children, possibly even siblings. These stones were so structured because there were no surnames in ancient Egyptian culture. Parents and children were a sort of family tree, which allowed for the identification of the deceased.
ಏನದು?
Welcome to Bread and Beer.
ಹಿಂಗೇನೋ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೆ ನೋಡು.
While the Mesopotamians invented beer, including using a straw to avoid the sediments and herbs, ancient Egyptians beer was the popular drink of ceremony. Recipes. Once baked, bread would be crumbled into the brew to start the fermentation process. Once ready, the bread and grain mixture was compressed and then strained through a sieve. Once smooth, the beer was stored in pottery jars and sealed with a clay stopper. It probably couldn't be kept for long and likely had a thick, pasty appearance and texture. Very little was wasted. Leftover grains were reused to make sourdough bread or combined with the next batch of beer. While there are many ancient accounts for making bread, most of the knowledge known about ancient Egyptian brewing comes. Food was prepared on the floor until the Middle Kingdom, when cooking benches were introduced. The introduction of durum wheat improved bread quality, meaning that the upper and middle classes ate better. The poor, however, still made do with a diet consisting of a gruel made of vegetables, softened bread, or barley. Dough was kneaded by hand or foot, and when sufficiently blended, additional items were added, such as fruits, nuts, honey, and spices. To leaven the bread, they added sourdough or leaven from beer brewing. Ovens were circular or beehive-shaped and made with clay or brick. If there was no oven at all, a bread maker used the hot sand to bake flatbread, a technique still in use by some Berbers today. Ancient Egyptians always had to fight off the omnipresent sand particles that were blown towards them. Despite their best efforts, sand regularly made its way into their food. Additionally, particles from the grain-grinding stone tools and ovens they used also contributed to attrition and prematurely worn teeth. The team tried to portray this through toothache animations and commoners sweeping sand off.
ಏನೋ ಫುಲ್ ಝೋನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಸಖತ್ತಾಗಿ. ಸೊ ನಿಫ್ಟಿ 25,000 ಮೇಲ್ಸ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇನಾ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Ha'emnun.
Non mes mio Gideon. هل خريت
ياهو أنخ.
ನಿಮ್ಮನೇನಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡಿರ್ಬೇಕನ್ನೋದು. ಇದು ಯಾಕೋ ಹಂಗ ಅಳಿಸ್ತೀಯ ನನ್ನ? ಆಡೆತ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ನೀನು. ನಾನಲ್ಲಿ ಸೋತೋದೆ. ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಮ್ಯಾಚು 4 ಸೋತೋಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಒಂದು ಎತ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ಯಾ? ಇದ್ಯಾವುದೋ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಹೊಡೆದಿಲ್ಲ ಹೊಡಿಯೋ ಇನ್ನೇನು ಗೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಲ್ಲ ಎತ್ತೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟಲ್ಲ ಉರಿಸ್ತ್ಯಾ ನಾನು 3 ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ಸೋತೋಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾ? ನಾನು 3 ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ಎತ್ಬೇಕೀಗ. ಅವನ ಹತ್ರ ಡೆಕ್ ಯಾವ್ದಿದೆ ನೋಡು. ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಇಟ್ಟವನು ಡೆಕ್ಕು. ಇದ್ಯಾವುದೋ ಇದು ಚಿಲ್ಟರುಗಳು. ನನಗೂ ಮಗ ಎತ್ತೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟ ಮಗ. ಮಾಡು. தம்பி ஹெல்ப் பண்ணணும்னா ಯಾಕೋ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬಿಡಪ್ಪ. ಯಾಕೆ ಬಿಡೋ ಆಯ್ತು. ಬರೋ ಎಡಗಡೆ ಬಾಯಲ್ಗರಿಗೆ ಹಾಕದ. ಮಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಹೋಗಿರೋದು ನಮ್ದು ಆಗ್ರೇಟರ್ ಬಿಡು. ಹಾರ್ಡೇ ಬಿಡಪ್ಪ. ಯಾವನ್ ಏನೇ ಹೊಡಿಲಿ ಮಗ. ಎರಡೆರಡು ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟ ಬಾರ್ಬೇರೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಒಂದರಿದ್ರೆ ಅರ್ಧ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಕರಿ ಹಾಕಿನಿ ಇದು ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಹಾಕೋ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಹಾಕು. ಓಕೆ ಇದೇನಿದು ಇನ್ನೂ ನಾವು ಸೋತಿಲ್ಲ. ಮಗ ನೀನು ಟೆಕ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಮಗ. ಯಾಕೋ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟೆ.
Hier, Gert Jan.
Whoa.
ನಿಂಗೇನಪ್ಪ ಗೊತ್ತು. ಓ ಗುಡ್ಡೆ ಹಾಕ್ತ ಮಗ. ಮಸ್ಕಿಟೀರ್ ಇಷ್ಟ ಇಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ. ಹೊಡೆದು ಹಿಂದೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾಳೆ. ಹಾಗ್ ರೈಡರ್ ಬಿಡು ಲೆಫ್ಟ್. ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಹಾಕು. ಇದು ಹಾಕ್ಬೇಕು ಮಗ. ಹಂದಿ ತಿಕ್ಕ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಅನ್ಕಣ. ಕಟಾವರ್ ಸಖತ್ತಾಗಿ ಕರಗ್ತು. ಹೌದು ಅವ್ನ್ಗ ಹಾಲ್ಡೇಗೆ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡೆ. ಲೋ ಇಲ್ಲಿ 1 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕರಗಿಸ್ತಾವ್ರಲ್ಲೋ. ಯಾಕೆ ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಹಾಕಲು. ಲೋ ಚಿಣ್ಕ ಮಿಣ್ಕ ಹಾಕ್ದ ಮಗ. ಡಿಫೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ರಾಕೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ. ಲೋ ಫ್ರೀಸ್ ಅಮುಕ್ತ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಡಿಫೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವು. ಹಂದಿ ತಿಕ್ಕ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾನೆ ಕಳ್ಳ. ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ನೋಡು. ಮಗ ಇವರು ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಬರೀ ಅಟ್ ಎ ಟೈಮ್ 4 ಚೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕ್ಕಾಗೋದು. ಅದನ್ನು ಬ್ಯಾಟಲ್ ಪಾಸ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡಿದ್ಯಾ ಅಲ್ವ ನೀನು? ಕಾಸು ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ದಿನ 1 ಲಕ್ಷ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತೀನಿ. ಅವಾಗ ಈ ಗೇಮೇ ಆಡಲ್ಲ ನಾನು. ಬ್ಲ್ಯಾಕ್ ಬುಕ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ತಗೋಬೋದು. ನಾನು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ 1 ಗೇಮ್ ಗಿಫ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಸೈಡ್ ನೋಡು. ರೈಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಹಾಕೋ, ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಹಾಕೋ. ಹೋಯ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನೇ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರೋದು. ನನಗೆ ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಹಾಕು. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವನ್ನ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಂಗೆ ಹಿಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಹಾಕು. ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ.
حروخ انتيت مدوس بقعدها فين
ನೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಅಮ್ಕೋ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಆ ಟವರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಡಗಡೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಬಿಡ, ಆಪರೇಟರ್ ಬಿಡ. ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಸೈಡು ಮಗ ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಹಾಕೋ. ಬಾಂಬ್ ಟವರ್ ಹೋಯ್ತು. ಇನ್ಫರ್ನೋ ಡ್ರ್ಯಾಗನ್
نحتحيت عن باك
نارديو صغيرت.
ಮಗ ನಂದು ಕಾರ್ಡ್ಸು ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದಾಗೋಯ್ತು. ಎಲ್ಲ ಓಲ್ಡ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ನಂದು. ಅದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಬೇಕಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಇದೆಯಾ ನಿಂದು? ಡೈಲಿ ಏನು ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವನು.
Whoa.
هرسية شد شديد
خير يا فاجن.
مسمع جميعا.
High position gerecht.
Whoa.
Vernachte, huurt en bed.
ಮಗ ಏನನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಇದು ಮ್ಯಾಚು ನೋಡು. ಹಲೋ.
سامعة شعات
ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಾಯಿನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆಯಾ ನೀನು?
Shemeni Nesu. Tonight?
Whoa.
يهرسف شماتمو يا بش
إيري هم عن
كيف أنجو
Whoa. Whoa.
Bean! Who?
Whoa.
ಸೊಪ್ಪು ಸಿಕ್ತಪ್ಪ ನನಗೂ. ಕಡೆ ಉದ್ಯೋಗ ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲೇ ಮಗ ಇದು ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಕಡೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತಪ್ಪ. ಬೇಜಾನ್ ಇಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ? ಯಾವ್ದು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋದು ಕ್ಯಾನನಿಯರಾ ಏನು ಸಿಗ್ತದೋ
بدنك أني خيط
Bummer, get out of my way.
هأمون سيتي يردني إلي
شم عصم سو
ಅದು ಹೆಂಗ್ ತಗೊಂಡೆ ನಾನು 6 ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು
هي
نجهر إنك أها
هي هرو وسير نجهر بعصر نبروتيا هي خالتي عم
Headed to Thebes. It is a sand-scourged journey. But my caravan is fast.
Bayek, I do not send you greetings, but a warning. 4 years have passed since we laid the last to rest, but the Creed spurs us ever onwards. I have captured a messenger bearing news of another artifact, this time in Upper Egypt. You must go at once. Give this parcel to Merti. She lives and runs her business near Luxor. She owes me a favor, not friendship. The rest must fall to you. Find this artifact no matter the cost. Let no one unleash its power on those we once swore to protect.
Welcome! Welcome in Thebes. You need a room.
ಬೆಕ್ಕ ಕರಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತು ಆಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ
A bigger shield? A bodyguard?
What is this?
The Pharaoh's curse!
As Ra lives, he landed a blow. You are nothing but a figment!
I honor the gods. She comes for me. I stole nothing.
Return to the Duat!
Why do the pharaohs punish
These
us?
people are innocent!
Amun, protect me. Amun, protect us all.
I am no easy prey! Who summoned you?
Sekhmet, protect me. I don't need to give you drachma. There are worse than me. The abomination punished us. Saul has deserted us.
Someone has... The artifact is using it to summon the long dead. I must stop them before this car smothers all of Thebes.
Here, Pen, Samsu.
Here, Khartia Biti.
Amunet said her... Amunet said her contact was near Luxor.
Cheru,
Yes.
Here! No one keeps it open!
هنفريت لغة ياهو ينج خيرك.
Now, it was just about here.
This area is off limits.
Hey, what?
Hey, what?
Hier, Haru Tot.
Seba! Sache kapuch henwet!
Heus!
How can I help you? Done.
بيح إنسان سجعس سرسحريت.
Deal. Yes, all right.
No, Dio.
Fair enough.
Piabu, Nick Demos, Senefe. Piabu Sa'a, UMYIL, Chess.
Yes, all right.
Adu Beshatir, Amonna, Duau.
Deal.
بندعة سحرية جيش تعاون.
There's Bayi, just behind East Abayi.
Fair enough.
A happy, Ka'ahemet, a boy. Nesuni, sweet, Inichem.
Yes, all right. Deal. Godspeed.
Ire, Dio,
Here?
Any surgery?
مين خرويين؟ كيفي.
Right position, Gere.
Ah, yeah, Heru.
You know what this curse has cost Thebes. Cost me. I have no one left.
Your uncles.
Ah, you survived the curse? They will speak of you throughout Thebes.
Make sure no one speaks of me.
Enough, Suter.
Of course. No Philakitai will hear of the man with death in his eye.
I was told you would help me. This is for you.
What is this? Who gave this to you?
The woman you know as Aya.
Very well. What do you want?
A rare artifact. I believe it is the cause of this curse.
Could it be? Rumors, whispers. A relic was stolen from an unknown pharaoh's tomb. Some say this desecration called the curse down upon us.
I must find it.
There's quite a black market here in Thebes. Secret auctions, rare trades. Talk to the merchants near the docks. They will know more. And tell Aya our deal is done. I am headed south. The curse comes too close for comfort.
What if I have more questions?
Then find Isidora, the god's wife of Amun. She will understand this curse in a way I cannot.
Huh. Deal, Gef.